Hi everybody, Shane here at the Brick House, back again with another video. Today I'm going to be reviewing this alt build of set 42110, the Land Rover Defender, and turning it into this incredible Jeep Wrangler CJ. This is an alt build designed by Victor Guyanis, and as you can see, it is absolutely incredible. So let's not waste any time, and I'll get into describing the build and some of the challenges and my overall thoughts on it. Now, the first thing you can see about this build is the actual size of the vehicle. It is a regular size build, but the tires are obviously oversized, which makes it massive. And as you can see, when you compare it to the Raptor, you can see just how much larger it is in size and especially in height. If you put it side by side, obviously this one is on a carousel, but you can still see the overall size difference. So it is an incredibly massive vehicle. Now the designer gives you two options in the instructions. One, you can build with the standard Defender tires and you can see the size difference of what it would look like, or you can build it with these oversized tires. Obviously, I built it with the oversized tires, and you can see why it looks absolutely incredible. I bought these tires for about $7 a piece. With shipping, it cost me about $40 from someone on Bricklink. I highly recommend you use these oversized tires if you want this full effect, but it's not necessary. The way the instructions are designed is there's two sets of instructions. One for the standard build with these standard tires and one with these large tires. And what you do is you build the first 120, 125 steps from the first set of instructions. And then if you have the large tires, you use the second set of instructions and you build another 100 steps or so and then go back to the first instructions. So you have to use both instructions if you want to use the large tires, or you can just use the small tires and just stick to the first set of instructions. You get both set of instructions for around $15, which I think is an incredible deal. Now, when you first build this set, like all Technic sets, you begin building this center gearbox. And so you build the gearbox in three different stages. There's this first stage that builds the locking differential. You then build this second stage and then the third stage, which is the steering. Now, the great thing about this build is it functions like a Technic set. And so if you see, if I turn it upside down, you'll see that there are gearboxes here. And if I spin them, all four tires go in reverse. They all go forward. And if I put one tire down, it has locking differential. So all three will spin, or just the front. So this set does have all the technical functions of a Technic set, which is really fantastic. You can also see in here that there is a gearbox that it's currently in neutral. It has a high gear and a low gear, and it also has a forward and reverse. And those functions do work. The designer of this alt build also creates a RC version where you use the Defender set and another RC set from Lego to build a remote control version. I'm not a big fan of Lego remote control. I think they're slow and lack a lot of power, and I wasn't about to buy two sets to make an RC version. When I buy RC cars, I usually buy Traxxas. I don't use Lego, but there is an option to turn this into a remote control version. I just wanted this model for display. It is incredibly sturdy because it is Technic. It uses a lot of pins, obviously, so it is probably the sturdiest of the alt builds I've done this year. You can definitely play with it. The one thing that happens is these pieces on the hood generally pop off from time to time, because they're just affixed with a small pin. But other than that, this is an incredibly sturdy vehicle. In addition to the standard gears forward and reverse, it also has hand of God steering. And so as you can see, when you spin the spindle on the top, the wheels move back and forth. Now, for all the young people out there, you may have heard the term hand of God and wonder where it comes from. It actually comes from a soccer reference in the 80s. A famous soccer player, arguably the greatest soccer player in the world, Diego Maradona, played for Argentina, and he actually scored a goal and the ball hit off his arm and went into the goal, and it counted because the referees didn't see it, and they ended up winning the match. And at the end, they asked him, did he have a handball? And he said something along the lines of, if it was a handball, it was the hand of God. So now when you build this, as most Technics, you start with these gearboxes. I can tell you when you build the gearboxes, there are a lot of tight fits and a lot of gears working together to make all this incredible functionality. There are 3 main gearbox components that you then begin to slide into each other. It's really important that you make sure that the gears are functioning, so I would test them and make sure you can visualize and see that they're working and doing what they're supposed to before you put them together, because once you get them into the center of this vehicle, it's going to be nearly impossible to get to them unless you take it apart. And so as you can see from the bottom, the steering works on this rod and they push into these pins. Then the steering goes up through this rod, through the back door, through here. It's a really tight fit and you have to make sure that you squeeze it in and get it properly set up before you lock it into place. Same holds true with the differential and the gearboxes. Make sure that that's all working correctly so that it functions and spins properly. That whole gearbox took me probably 2-3 hours to put together and make sure it was functioning correctly. I didn't have any big errors or mistakes. I just wanted to take my time and make sure that it worked correctly. The build is sturdy. It's pretty straightforward. The instructions are clear for the most part. There are some times where you have to be kind of intuitive about them. I think overall the instructions are around $15 and I think they're worth every penny. Once you build the gear components, you then begin to build the front and rear axles and drivetrain components, and as you can see, they're incredibly detailed, just like a Technic. Each wheel has dual shocks on either side. There is a lot of flexibility and a lot of movement, so this is a rock crawler, and it actually has a lot of play and a lot of functionality, both in the front and in the back. If you can see them, they are really well designed. And there's also a lot of wheel articulation. This is just a really well designed set. And as I said from the bottom, if I spin this, you can see all the gearboxes moving. And it's just really a fantastic build. So once you build the center gearbox and then the front and rear axle, you begin building the front engine compartment. I don't know if I can hold this and do it at the same time. But as you can see, as I spin the spindle, the 8-cylinder engine, the pistons go up and down. So in addition to have this incredible, accurate looking 8-cylinder engine with the hoses, it actually has the functionality of having the push rods go up and down. So another really great feature. And then what you begin to build is these seats. And these seats are bucket seats that have a lot of pieces, and they look really nice, and they were pretty straightforward and fun to build. Now this model doesn't have any floorboards, so no one really technically could sit in there. That's inconsequential because this is really a rock crawling design. Once you build the engine, you then build this front piece. And now building the grille of this Jeep was absolutely one of the funnest things to do. Building this crossbar, you actually take pieces and slide it in a spacer, and then you clamp it into the front. The Technic pins work great. The designer did a really excellent job of fitting everything together, and this was one of the funnest parts of the build. You then build this guard and toe winch, which you can see you can spin with your hand up and down. As I said, the weakest part of this thing is this hood set actually pops off from time to time. It looks incredibly menacing from the front and super cool. You build this, and then you build these step-ups across the side. Now these, as I said, these are kind of tricky because there are small pins that rotate that you then have to put onto this longer green plate. And as I've said, there are a lot of tight squeezes and tight spaces in here that you have to kind of maneuver. And what I do is I bend the piece a little to make sure it pops in because there is some flexibility in the pieces. You do need some dexterity, and you do need to be kind of mindful that you have to stick your fingers in some really tight spaces to push some of the pins in, especially when you're building the first set of the steering. This set is designed for an adult. I think a teenager could put it together. Now, as you can see, there is a steering wheel in here that doesn't function. It's just there for looks, but I'm glad that it's there. Now, I can tell you that you all know this is a brick separator. They come with every Lego set. I now have hundreds of them, it seems. I don't find them very useful when I'm building Lego sets, and they're even less useful for a Technic set. What I like to use is a pair of needle nose pliers. I highly recommend that you use needle nose pliers when you're building sets, not just Technic but all, because it allows you to grip something that's really small and pull it in or out. And so when you have a brick, you can grip it and pull it out, and it just will save your fingers from all of the pushing and pulling and prodding, especially if you put a pin in the wrong place and you have to try to grip it and pull it out. Taking the needle nose pliers and pulling it, it just makes things so much easier. So I highly recommend you get a pair of needle nose pliers. This is the regular Defender tire, so you can imagine how much smaller the set would be if you do the standard build. As I said, you're welcome to do the standard build. I just think it looks so much cooler with the big set of tires. Once you build the engine in the front piece and then you build these step-ups, you then begin building the shell of the vehicle, and it's pretty straightforward. As I said, you have to be mindful of when you're putting in the steering, that it kind of clips in between these two pieces, and it becomes a bit of a challenge to hold it and push this together while putting the pin in. I like Technic. I like some Technic more than others. I'm not a huge Technic fan, I have to be honest. This set has totally changed my mind about Technic and has given me a newfound appreciation for Technic sets. I have never been more excited to build a Lego set in a long time. Other than the Lamborghini Countach Alt build, this is my favorite build of the year next to the Lamborghini Countach. I started building it, I'd spend 2-3 hours, I'd go take a break, and 10 minutes later I was back at it because I was so excited. Overall, it took me about 10 hours to build this set, which I think is pretty good for a Technic set. As I said, with most alt builds, you don't follow the regular Lego instructions, so you have to take all of the pieces and put them out in front of you. But I will say that unlike a standard set, like a Creator Expert or some type of modular, this one was a little easier to build, not because there were fewer pieces, but there were fewer different types of pieces. It's incredibly solid. You can play with it. I wouldn't run it outside in the dirt. As I said, there's an RC version that the designer has created. I wasn't going to pay for this set and another set to make an RC version because I don't think that's Lego's strong suit. In fact, I think their RC versions are really kind of terrible. They're just slow and lack a lot of power. This is more of a display piece for me, but you can definitely play with it because it is definitely sturdy enough to do so. So once you build this centerpiece, you then begin to build the back of the truck bed. Now I can tell you that this is pretty straightforward build. You build the side walls, you build the top piece, and then you put on the fender flares. The rear trunk does open. There are these two pieces on either side that you can just pop off and pull the bed down. So there is a lot of functionality on this vehicle. So once you have the main bed, you then build this hood, and the hood is super cool. As I said, it's probably the weakest part of the build as these pop off from time to time. The last thing of the build are these 4 doors, and they're pretty straightforward. These are guard doors for doing some rock crawling. This is without question the funnest build I've done in a long time. It has given me a newfound respect for the Technic vehicles. I think the designer just did an amazing job. You know, I was tempted to give one of these sets away to one of my subscribers because I think if you buy the instructions and you build this, if you're a Technic fan, you're going to love it. This is arguably, without question, one of my most favorite display pieces right now and will take center stage. I'm hoping to find other cool sets like this. Now, as I said, this was from the Defender set, which I think has around 2,500 pieces in it. These are the pieces that are left over. There are quite a few, probably 600-700 pieces. But as you can see, this thing is a beast. It looks incredible. I love the army green, which I think works really well. So I'm super glad that the Defender came in army green because this I don't think would look as cool in blue or red or black. It looks great because this is a standard Jeep color. As I said, I bought this set at Zavvi.com for $150, so it was on discount. So this plus the instructions and the tires, of course. So this cost me just a tad over $200 or right around $200, which I think is worth every penny. That's my review for today. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button, and I'll see you next time.